welcome to another episode of Smeco Connects. I'm Sonia Cox, and
Tom Dennison, Sonia's co-host for the Smeco Connects podcast. Today we have Eugene Bradford, who is our vice president over rates and energy procurement. And it's Eugene and Sonia and I have to have a lot of conversations about rates. And so I think having you here today is a really, really good thing. So Eugene, how long have you been here at Smeco, and kind of what did you do before you came here?
I've been at Smeco for a bit over 28 years now. Came to Smeco from working for an investor-owned utility for 6 years up in Massachusetts. And then prior to that, I started out in the electric utility industry, working at the Texas Public Utility Commission, helping to do a job of regulating utilities down in the state of Texas. So that's my background, a lot of utility experience there over the years. And then the 28 years at Smeco here, which has been very enjoyable and been a very rewarding experience.
so did you start in the utility industry right out of college?
I started working for the utilities after I finished getting an MBA from the University of Texas.
Okay.
Hook 'em.
Hook 'em horns, very good.
That's great. That's great. So Eugene, you're out in the community in some way, shape, or form, talking to folks about rates and kind of what goes into them. So talk to us a little bit about how Smeco develops our rates and sort of the monthly bill that all of our businesses and our residential customers receive. So I guess the first part is maybe talk about our power procurement first, and then maybe we'll get into the bill.
Sure. So Smeco purchases all the power supply that we sell to our members. That is their electricity that they use for their homes and businesses to basically turn on, keep on the lights and run the air conditioners and so forth. So we do our power supply procurement through purchases in a competitive electric market here in the Mid-Atlantic region, so that we are getting competitively priced, good value electric price procurement to our members for the power supply that they're buying. We want them to be paying a fair price for the electricity that they're using. Smeco does not do any markup on the electricity that we purchase. So we are buying the electricity and then passing it along to our members at the cost that we are able to procure it at. And we work very hard to do deals for our power supply, and we can buy power supply on a short-term basis, on a long-term basis, in blocks, on a daily basis. And we do it negotiating with various counterparties and looking for who will provide us what we're looking for at the best price, so that we're passing along, again, good competitively priced power supply to our members, and trying to keep the bill to them as low as we can, trying to make sure and ensuring that that there's good reliability, no issues about not having power supply to our members. So there's always the risk that you have to worry about as well. So the board of directors have set up policies and guidelines on that for us to work within, and we use that to go out and procure the power supply. And it's a daily process that we do to look at what the load is going to be for all our members on each day of the year, and looking forward over the seasons, and then looking at, okay, what do we need to procure over the next 6 months, over the next year, and going out and making purchases of the power supply to meet that requirement.
And to do that, you forecast what you think our load is going to be. So can you talk a little bit about what maybe some of our viewers or listeners, they don't understand the word load?
Certainly, load basically being just the total amount of energy use, electricity use that each member is taking for powering their home and their business. So it's the amount of electricity that they're consuming, and the combined amount every hour of the day is Smeco's hourly system load, and that's the total amount of energy that we are procuring every hour of the day for meeting a power supply.
And how does weather factor into that?
Weather is one of the most dominant drivers of how much electricity our members are using, and that's simply because the biggest users of electricity, some of the biggest users of electricity for members is their air conditioners for keeping homes and businesses cool during the summer, the heaters for keeping them warm during the winter. So those devices are the largest amounts of load in homes and businesses, and therefore the amount of electricity that customers use goes up significantly in the winter and in the summer. It can be like in January, the average residential customer uses 40% more energy for their home than they do on average out throughout the course of the year. Whereas in the spring and fall months, they're about 30% lower on their usage than what's average for the year. And that's the biggest reason that the electric bills for customers will increase and decrease over the course of the year. The bills are higher in January, and the main reason for that is that the customers used more energy in January, more energy in July because of the need for heating and cooling the houses.
Yeah, because it's hotter or colder outside.
It is. It
Exactly,
is.
yeah.
And
It's
you know,
amazing.
that's a challenge and that's difficult, but that is a fact of the way things are. Of course, customers can get onto budget billing for evening out their bills over all the months, and that's one thing that's available to try and even out and keep the bills a bit more constant over the course of the year.
Yeah, so Eugene, let's get back to power supply. And I always found it helpful to explain our power supply. You talked about different blocks of short, medium, long-term contracts. It's almost like a stock portfolio or a retirement savings. You know, you have different diversified investments. Is power supply sort of like that as well?
Yes, it is. Very much. It is purchasing like purchasing occurs on markets. And in fact, we do use energy markets for buying the power supply blocks of energy that we're using for meeting our needs. And we are negotiating and diversifying the parties that we buy power supply from. And one of the things that is part of our structure is that we try and ensure that we don't have too large a piece of our power supply needs from any one particular supplier, so that we're too dependent, too tied up with any one particular supplier, that we maintain a diversified portfolio of power suppliers that we use for meeting our needs over time.
How about, so we talked about power supply. We talk a little bit about the other part of the bill, the distribution part of the bill.
Sure. So the distribution part of the bill is basically to pay for the cost of all of the plant and facilities that Smeco has in place to essentially connect all of our members to the electric grid so that the energy can flow into their houses. So it's the wires that are running to your house, it's the transformers that are out there in the field, the utility poles, the substations, down to the meter as well. All of that plant basically is in place to create a circuit, electric circuit for power supply to flow from generating plants all around the Mid-Atlantic region to everybody's house and into their house, providing them power supply. So we set distribution rates to recover the costs that we incur for putting that distribution plant in place, keeping it updated, operating and maintaining it. And we come up with what is the annual cost that we incur for operating, maintaining, building and owning all those distribution facilities. And that annual cost is then turned into what are the rates that we have to charge our members for the annual cost of that distribution system, and those rates are then what are used to recover the revenues by billing the customer for their usage. And the rates are basically set on here's the amount of cost that we have and what we have to recover, and then they are charged based upon what the customer's usage is over each month. So you take the cost and the usage, and by dividing, you can come up with what is the rate that you need to charge to recover those costs from our members.
And we have different classes of customers as well, right? I mean, we have commercial rates, business, large commercial. We have residential rates. What goes into that?
So we do have residential rates, commercial rates, and a few other smaller rates as well. So the rates that we charge, basically we determine what is the amount of cost that basically are caused by each of the rate classes. How much of the total costs are due to the usage by our residential customers, how much are by our commercial customers, and then based upon that, that's the amount of cost that the rates for each class, the residential rates, the commercial rates, are set to recover. And again, we have what is the usage that we'll have from our residential customers and from our commercial customers. And so we use that to come up with what are the rates that we charge for residential customers. Their kilowatt hour charge for the amount of energy consumed, and there's a monthly facilities charge that basically is used for part of the fixed costs that customers have for the facilities that we have out on the system here. Again, the poles and wires and transformers on the system. So the rates have a couple of components to them, basically fixed costs and variable costs, and they are designed to recover essentially what are the parts of the costs that we have that are fixed and set and plant, basically, physical assets that have we had to purchase, and their upfront costs, and that's it. And then their cost for the amount of energy that you're using, and use more energy, then that's a higher cost. Use less energy, so they're variable costs, and some of the rates are charged against your variable usage to produce that total amount of a cost recovery.
And I think it's important to know too that all of our rates are approved by our board of directors, and then our rates are also regulated by the Maryland Public Service Commission. So you spend a good bit of time up there in Baltimore to deal with making sure that the rates that we are providing are, they are fully regulated. We have people looking over our shoulders on them. So Eugene, what's kind of you've been here at Smeco for 28 years. What's kind of the biggest challenge that you face right now in your job, and developing these rates and making sure that we're, up to date on everything?
So the challenges that we have right now are perhaps that there is a bit more uncertainty in what's going on in the electric utility industry now than has been the case over the past decade or so. There's a lot of growth going on in commercial customers and in basically additions of electric vehicles, EVs, that add to the electric load that we see, and electrification of homes and businesses going on as the incentive out there is to basically switch away from fossil types of facilities like fuel oil and gas for home heating systems and so forth. So that has created more growth going on that has to be met. At the same time, the impetus to try and go away from fossil fuel type generating facilities means that, well, coal plants and natural gas plants are getting retired. And that means that there's a challenge on getting replacement generating plants and service and available for providing the power supply that's needed. So the combination of those has resulted in increases in costs that we are seeing, and having to basically put those into rates that we're charging and pass this on to members. That's a issue that we're trying to deal with as best we can. We work hard on trying to keep our power supply cost as affordable to our members as we can, but there are these pressures going on that are making that more difficult right now, unfortunately.
Well, I just have one like statistic in the area, in our area, PJM, Mid-Atlantic area. We've retired about 6,000 megawatts over the last couple years, and we've only replaced that with 1,600 megawatts. So, I mean, you can do the math there. You know, if you're retiring more than you're building, then you're going to have an issue. So, I
Yes.
think that's
Yeah,
exacerbating
absolutely.
the problem.
Yes, we basically import more electricity from around farther parts of the region, essentially for what's been retired and gone out of service. And then we have the need to build more, and building more generating plants also comes with the challenge of building more transmission lines because the plants, if they're located at different places than in the past, then there has to be transmission to get the power from those plants to where it's being used by load. And so there's multiple reasons why
Another
costs are
challenge.
going up,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, and not to mention that the infrastructure that we have to procure is A, harder to get, and B, massively more expensive. I mean, whether it's your bread and butter transformers or even the cost of the concrete that goes into the ground that holds our steel poles in the air.
Right.
I mean, those prices have gone, skyrocketed over the past, since COVID, I think.
Right.
And so again, that's got to be another challenge that you have, that not only from the power supply standpoint, but just the cost that we bear to provide the service that we do, and then recovering it appropriately.
Yes, exactly. The costs of all the various items, as you mentioned, have gone up very, very large amount over the past number of years here for, as you said, our conductors, our transformers, poles, the the lead time to get those as well has increased, making it more of a challenge as well for the whole system there. So it is uh, again a more uncertain time that we're in here, and I think we are doing a good job of addressing it and dealing with it as a cooperative here, and
Sure.
keeping things going well for our members. But I'm afraid there is an increase in costs and an increase in rates that is occurring, and that's a challenge for members.
Well, I don't want to really get into politics, but I think it kind of remains to be seen what the tariffs are going to do to the cost of the materials that we need for our infrastructure, because we get a lot of the stuff, a lot of it's not made in the US, it's made in other countries. So that's, I don't know if it's going to add to the cost of the materials or not, but I think somebody's going to have to bear the cost of those tariffs.
There's certainly the possibility, the risk that is going to be an additional increase on costs. Um,
Yeah, and I think just kind of building off of that, renewable energy is another big topic that we deal with. I know in my job in Annapolis, we talk a lot about that. Talk about our Smeco's renewable portfolio standard. We call it the RPS, and that's part of your job as well, right, Eugene?
yes. So there is a state legislation that requires that all of the electric utilities in the state, including Smeco, have a percentage of their power supply that they're they're serving their members, they're providing to their members, be 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 green, be from renewable sources, and that is a percentage that is increasing here over time. It goes up to a 50% requirement by 2030 is what the current rules are on that, and we meet that through having some power supply from wind and solar farms that are we directly buy energy from, but we also can do it by buying renewable energy credits or RECs in the market there for the total amount of power supply requirements that we have to meet. So we do that on an ongoing basis, and the cost of that is part of what is the power supply costs that go into the electric rates that we're charging to our members. So it's a significant cost, and it will continue to go up as we
As
go
those
forward.
percentages go up.
Yes,
For all
exactly.
of the
We're at
requirements go
about
up.
a 34% requirement for 2025, and again, by 2030, that increases to a 50% requirement. So that will be an additional cost that we do have there. Now, we do actually have a rider that offers members that are interested the option of having us purchase RECs to cover 100% of their usage by REC, so that they're basically 100% green. And we do have a few small number of members that are doing that. So it is an option that's out there, and we can do that for them.
Great. So when you talk about renewables right now, they're not dispatchable. So you can't just call on a solar farm, turn it on, and it produces like you have a natural gas plant or a nuclear plant. Those are dispatchable resources. You can, ramp them up, whatever you need to do. So I guess I'm asking for your opinion at this point. So if you have these non-dispatchable resources like solar, wind, all that, what needs to happen in order to have us to become 100% renewable? What do you? I mean, I'm thinking batteries or some type of storage would have to be would have to be
Yes.
have to be built in order. Well, first it's got to get to a point where you have a long duration battery that you can do in combination with those.
Exactly. There is the need to have batteries that can be charged and get energy for providing power supply, and time periods when you don't have wind and solar generation occurring because it's nighttime and it's a
Not windy.
Right.
yeah, it's a hot day with dead air, and there's
Right.
no wind generation going on. So the technology is evolving on battery systems and having battery storage that's capable for supplementing renewable generation. And I think eventually there'll be the ability to do that reasonably, but I think that's still a number of years out into the future to have that as meeting all of our requirements for our load, for our power supply, for keeping the lights on for customers 24 hours a day, for the morning when they get up and turn on the lights, and the evening when they come home, and the load goes up, and there isn't an instantaneous change in wind and solar generation out there to cover those changes. And that's what has been the capability of dispatchable generation.
Right.
The fossil fuels, it can be ramped up and ramped down on an instantaneous basis as load goes up and down. So to be able to do that going forward will require a number of years of improvements in technology and more renewables and battery systems being put in place. And that's going to be more of the challenges that come along here that we're going to be dealing with over the next decades or so. And it'll keep things very interesting for the industry.
Yeah, there's no
The
doubt
other
about
other
that.
part of it is try and keep it interesting, but also keep it from getting real expensive. Try and keep it at a fair, good
Right.
cost for our members, and we always try and keep that in mind while we're doing as well.
Yeah, I just think I just want to keep it in mind that, as you said, maybe a decade from now before we get there, and in the meantime, we need baseload dispatchable generation to stay online so that we can provide power to our members.
Yes, I think it is still uh, a core part of being able to have power supply to meet our members' needs on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week basis the whole year long. So I think that we will continue to be doing and having that in place and using that.
And
And hopefully there's things that can happen on improvements in technologies that might make it where it's still useful to have those. There are possibilities of doing things like carbon capture and storage that is a potential way to be able to continue to use fossil fuel generation going forward. That still has to go ways to, I think, be
Right.
successful, but we at least want to keep ourselves open to the possibilities of ways that can work for meeting our needs for power supply reliably and at a reasonable price, and still be doing things that are good for the environment. I mean, all of
yeah,
those points.
certainly. I mean, that's what we all have a mind for,
Right.
to for our environment, and I think we will see. There's certainly efforts going on at the state level right now to try to incentivize new nuclear, new generation, because Maryland, it's not just Southern Maryland, but Maryland as a state imports over 40% of our electricity. So
Yes.
to the extent you can have more power here within our state's borders is certainly becoming a priority for lawmakers. And I guess we'll see kind of how that will all shake out after the session comes forward. But
I mean, it is a goal, and it's a thing that's obviously being focused on and emphasized. So I think there will be some more interest in that. But one other side of it is the fact that the Mid-Atlantic region has been basically aggregated together over the
yes,
past number of decades for power supply from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Virginia, and so forth. And part of the reason for doing that is to basically take advantage of the ability to share and
uh,
schedule efficiently so that you aren't uh, wasting costs on plant that will sit idle for a period of time because you don't need it all the time. And by sharing generating units among states and among utilities, you can be more efficient in using them. So that has driven over time the way that the electric utility market has happened here in Maryland. There's still some value to that. I'm confident going forward. So that, along with the concerns about importing too much and not having enough in state, are definitely valid concerns.
got you. Well, I tell you, I think we could have an hour-long seminar on rates where we
Yeah.
talk about everything that's happening across the country and not only here in the state, but I know, I think for our viewers, it's helpful to know some of the aspects that go into our rates. And I think Eugene did a great job explaining that.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Thank you.
And we do have a section on our website for anybody who doesn't know, where we actually go through a bill, a fake bill, a phony bill, step by step, and talk about all the different components on that. So,
no, it's a great tool. And I think, and we also have on our website what our fuel mix is, like where we
We
get our
do.
power
We do.
and kind of the percentages of renewables versus fossil fuels.
Yes.
And Eugene mentioned the green rider, and that again is power supply that any member can sign up for. It's just a little bit more expensive than our standard offer service, but you can go on the website and find out more information about that. If you want to have green power supply, you can do that. And we're we're fortunate to be able to provide that. So I think all that information's on the website and they can find it. So Eugene, this has been helpful.
Yes, thank you, Eugene.
Well,
I
thank you.
appreciate it. It wasn't too painful, was it?
It was not too painful. Y'all were kind to me here. I appreciate it.
Well, very good.
We're getting better at it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Eugene.
you.
Thanks.